welcome everyone to the online webinar that is focused on the ASEAN food and beverage demands after the what will be in the next normal after the pandemic, which is the series of webinar in ASEAN. So we had the Indonesian country update by our Pak Adi Lukman on 23rd of August, and today we're gonna hear more about Philippines, which is one of the country that is the food and beverage is growing and continuously growing in terms of the demand and supply. So today I have with me Dr. Maria Leonardo D.L. Francisco. So she is the president of Philippines Association of Food Technologists. She is also, I always call her Dr. Lotis, so that we have Dr. Lotis with me. From today, the Philippines update that Dr. Lotis gonna share with us, we're gonna have next week with the Thailand update from Mr. Visit Lim Liucha. If anyone interesting to join, you can register through our food ingredients online event or even through the Zoom. So we're gonna show you how the presentation should be. If anyone would like to scan and do the register right now, you can do here. And I also will share in the chat box for those who have the question. So Food Ingredients Asia this year will not have the physical event. So we will deliver on the virtual platform, which is called Food Ingredient Online event. So today, part of the program, we are going to bring you up to date on the future of ASEAN food and beverage industry in the view of food and beverage demand in Philippines. What's next to prepare for reopening the business after pandemic? I have with me here Dr. Lotis. Are you ready? So I will pass to Dr. Lotis and enjoy her presentation.
Thank you, Rose. And thank you to FI Asia and Informa Markets for inviting again, the Philippine Association of Food Technologists Incorporated in this webinar series, the FMB Demand in ASEAN. Okay, so I'll just share my presentation. Okay. Okay, so before I start my talk, let me just give you an update first with regards to the current status of the Philippines, specifically in the national capital region during this pandemic. So far we have 3 total lockdowns, or what we call enhanced community quarantine. So the first one was enforced in 2020. So this is around 1 month, for the entire Luzon island, including the national capital region. And there were several restrictions and challenges, specifically in terms of food supply, both for the local and global. And the food manufacturing industry had to adjust immediately to the situation because of the need to provide food to all those affected by the lockdown. Now, for the year 2021, we had 2 lockdowns this year. One was in April for about a week, and we just implemented another one a few weeks ago. It ended last August 20. So this is about 2 weeks. And this was assumed that the rising cases was actually due to the Delta variant. Now, as of Monday, August 23, we had more than 18,000 new cases. So far, that's the highest number of cases since the pandemic began. And we are now under modified quarantine until the end of the month. Now, the situation is quite different now compared to the last 2 lockdowns in terms of supplies, logistics, and movements, since quite a number of people have already been vaccinated. So as of, again, Monday, August 23, 2021, 30.4 million doses of vaccine have already been given across the country. 12.1% or 13.1 million have been fully vaccinated. And then for Metro Manila, more than 4.2 million have been fully vaccinated, which is equivalent to 43.5% of the total population in Metro Manila. So it is envisioned that by the end of this month, 50% of the residents in Metro Manila are already fully vaccinated. Okay, so what's the F&B situation right now? Okay, the food manufacturing industry had to stay strong during the pandemic. And with this, the food and beverage sector have seen and will continue to experience intense competition in the market, pricing issues, and notably address a shift in consumer preferences that continuously put pressure on vendors' profits margins. At the start of the pandemic in 2020, Filipino households deprioritized the non-food sector in favor of food. Furthermore, Filipinos' household spending on food and non-alcoholic beverages remained high as more people value essential goods than non-essential goods. From the latest report of the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service released in July 2021, the food and beverage retail sector is seen to grow by 10% and expected to remain strong. We can summarize into two factors how the F&B sector would look like in 2021. That is change in consumer buying habits, and second one would be online solutions. The mid-March and August 2021 announcements of a strict at-home order in some areas saw many consumers, specifically those who have the means, rush to grocery stores to stock up on supplies to avoid frequent visits to buy groceries, while some concerns of supply shortages in particular products persist. The consumer packaged goods companies quickly adapted their supply chain operations to the spike in demand, and consumers were not faced with noticeable long-term shortages. As of April 2020, in this survey conducted by Rakuten Insight, 93% of the surveyed respondents stockpiled or bought in bulk dry food items during the pandemic. Dry food includes rice, noodles, pasta, flour, among others. Canned and preserved goods such as vegetables, soups, and pasta sauces were the next items highly bought among consumers during the pandemic. This is understandable since these products are considered shelf-stable. The next two food groups would be the frozen foods like vegetables, pizza, and meat products, and lastly, the fresh meat and vegetables. In another survey conducted in January 2021, the bread and cereal segment have by far the largest sales volume in the food market at approximately 28.18 billion kilograms. Ranked second were vegetables at an estimated 4.23 billion kilograms. Brand loyalty. Brand loyalty during the pandemic was almost non-existent. Across ASEAN and other parts of the world too, consumers were much more willing to try new brands during the pandemic. Based on the McKinsey & Company report released in July 2021, 80% of the respondents in the Philippines have tried new or alternate product brands during the pandemic. Now, the primary drivers for switching to a new or alternate product brand during the pandemic include unavailability of usual brands purchased, inclusion of promotions or discounts for new brands, and easier consumption for new brands. Add to this, with almost all households are on tight budget, Filipino consumers were looking for products and services where they can get more value for their money. So the brands do not matter as much as the quality and value consumers get from what they are buying. And with the information made available in the digital media, so in just one click, it is easy for the consumers to compare products and services. So this puts every food business owner on their toes, as brand names is not a guarantee of customer loyalty. The one who can give or offer better quality for the least amount is what consumers are going for. With more and more people staying and spending more time at home, there has been a marked increase in home-related spendings, while a number of restaurants were forced to shut down as consumers have continued to avoid or be restricted from enjoying food service. So as a result of social distancing measures, people began to cook more at home and give more consideration to the food they eat and how they source it. Some consumer habits related to safety and hygiene also change, which could remain after the pandemic subsides. Home cooking or baking continued to support demand for staples as well as premium food ingredients and industrial packages, while food manufacturers as well as the service sector are adjusting their offering to be better suited for home consumption. We saw an increase in frozen ready-to-eat meals and take-home sizes for grab-and-go needs of consumers. As an example, a popular pizza chain offered its potatoes in supermarkets in ready-to-fry frozen packs. Another fast food chain also offered its frozen pre-marinated chicken in the supermarket. And as for the food service sector, resto meal kits and the availability of their proprietary ingredients was their creative divergence from regular food takeout or delivery. This is also their effort to relive and sustain the restaurant experience at home. So the attraction to health and immunity benefits in consumer packaged goods is also undeniable nowadays. In the recently released Herbalife nutrition surveys from the 2020 Diet Decision Survey, more Filipinos are eating better in the so-called new normal. Now, the survey, which polled 8,000 consumers in different Asia-Pacific markets, including the Philippines, revealed that among the Filipinos surveyed, 53% said that they have started eating more fruits and vegetables, and 43% ate more plant-based food. The Philippines, too, ranked highest, which is equivalent to 62%, among the markets polled in its openness to plant-based foods and meatless options. These results are a good sign that Filipinos are becoming more mindful about their personal health, making healthier food choices, and becoming more open to plant-based and meatless options and staying physically active. 58% of the Filipino respondents, the survey shows, have made a major change to their diet, and 89% agreed that they had a specific moment during the pandemic when they realized they need to change their diet. 82% said that they made their change for health reason, while 51% said that it was to lose weight. And lastly, 27% said changing their diet would be more cost-effective for them. With the continuous expansion of the health and wellness movement, consumers are now more open to alternative and flexitarian diets. The USDA projected that the market for plant-based food products in the Philippines will grow as much as 3 to 5% in 2021 as consumers become increasingly aware of health trends and responsible consumption. Plant-based food options have gained popularity in previous years, but new and creative ways of using plant-based ingredients emerged this year. So aside from the traditional burgers and nuggets made from plant-based proteins or mycoproteins in the case of the corn brand, Filipinos were able to come up with a plant-based belly roll, seasoned seafood and eggs, sweet and savory, as well as veggie jerkies, chocolates, cheeses, and milk. These are some of the ingredients to look out for. Sustainable and or environmentally friendly products are also more preferred over those of inorganic materials. Consumers will take pride in their sustainability efforts and support of companies that make them feel more judicious in their use of packaging and precious resources. So as the growth of the world's population stretches the Earth's resources, consumers now consider the environmental impact of their diets. Now, based on the report released by Kantar Philippines in April 2021, 75% of Filipino shoppers seek out brands that offer ways to offset their environmental impact. 92% of Filipino shoppers prefer products made from natural ingredients. In addition, Filipino shoppers are inclined to purchase locally made products. Most importantly, consumers believe manufacturers should be driving the sustainability agenda. So developing a sustainability strategy has become paramount for brands. Now, the second factor that kept the food and beverage sector afloat during the pandemic is the use of online solutions. Now, according to the latest Digital 2021 report, the Philippines remains as the top country worldwide whose citizens spend the most time on the internet and social media. Filipinos spend an average of 10 hours and 56 minutes, almost 11 hours, on the internet daily via any device. So this is the 6th straight year that the Philippines has led the world in internet and social media usage. So there is no surprise that companies are increasingly harnessing sales through online services offered from websites and mobile applications, as well as marketing in community groups. Now, this is one of the apps that we are using, the GCash. In this, with this app, over 1 trillion Philippine pesos, or equivalent to 20 billion US dollars in transactions have passed through the GCash app during 2020, with more than 6 million transactions in a day. The mobile wallet company also grew its users to 33 million, which is a 65% growth increase versus the 2019 data. More than 600,000 merchants and social online sellers opened up shop during the pandemic with GCash as the primary mode of payment. So while consumers initially turned to e-commerce for continued access to products and a safety measure against COVID-19, it is likely to remain an increasingly preferred option post-pandemic. While still only accounting for a minuscule portion of the market, e-commerce of food and beverages increased 210% in 2020, and Post estimates 30% growth in 2021. Online delivery of food and dry goods also were booked. There were bookings wherein more transactions in 8 weeks than they did in the last 10 years. So the trends are very clear. Due to the permanence of the work from home phenomenon and a preference for home nesting, the internet has become the new marketplace for goods and services. Every merchant now must have a digital strategy to remain competitive. Now, from a sales perspective, the penetration of e-commerce has risen as retailers identify new challenges for the safe and distribution of their products. Local e-commerce players saw growth in sales volumes of 200 to 400% between the start of the pandemic and as of September 2020. There was also an uptick in community selling whereby Filipinos trade simple products as an additional means of livelihood. Let us now take a look at the government's response. The pandemic has placed unprecedented stresses on global food supply chains, with bottlenecks in farm labor, processing, transport, and logistics, as well as shifts in demands. So as we plan for recovery, we need to remember the crucial role of the agricultural food sector plays in supporting the economy. So throughout this pandemic, the agri-food value chain has demonstrated its resilience. It has placed food on the table at relatively stable prices, provided an income and employment for a huge proportion of the country's workforce, and created opportunities for businesses at each stage of the value chain. So the agri-food sector is the policymaker's top priority to provide favorable conditions to successfully help rebuild the national economy. Now, according to the recent study by Oxford Economics, released in 2021, the agri-food sector in the Philippines made a contribution to domestic GDP worth 127 billion in 2019, which is 30% of the country's total GDP valued in 2020 prices. This economic footprint was responsible for employing a total of 18 million, 43% of the national total. Alongside this, the agri-food supported 17.1 billion in tax revenues. In terms of the agri-food sector's economic impact for the last years, the sector grew robustly in the years before the pandemic. Its contribution to GDP was 16% larger in real terms in 2019 than in 2015, with the quickest growth seen in F&B distribution. Now, the largest component of the Philippine agri-food sector is the food and beverage manufacturing. In 2019, this component contributed 58.7 billion to GDP, accounting for 46%, or almost half of the total agri-food sector's economic footprint. In total, this component of the agri-food sector was responsible for sustaining 4 million jobs in 2019. The Philippines agri-food sector relies on imports of food and beverage products. In 2019, its imports of F&B products totaled 12.7 billion compared to exports worth 6.5 billion US dollars, resulting in a trade deficit worth 6.2 billion US dollars. The majority of this trade deficit comes from processed food and beverage products, having totaled 5.7 billion in 2019. The pandemic caused a painful contraction in the Philippines agri-food sector in 2020, despite its agricultural sector experiencing growth. The estimated overall agri-food sector's contribution to GDP contracted by 5.4 billion, resulting in 400,000 fewer people being employed. The F&B manufacturing was the hardest hit, with its total footprint estimated to have shrunk 7% in 2020. Despite this, the 4% overall contraction of the sector's GDP contribution is smaller than the rate at which the overall economy shrank, meaning that the agri-food sector has been more resilient than other parts of the economy. So we can see that this agri-food sector is undeniably an economic powerhouse, and ensuring proper support for the sector to recover is crucial in unlocking Philippines' growth potential post-pandemic. On top of the priority to contain community cases, there is a need to boost the agri-food sector in order for the food and beverage industry and the Philippine economy to pull itself out from the depths of the pandemic. Another important sector that the government quickly responded to is helping the micro and small and medium enterprises, or the MSMEs. The MSMEs comprise 99.5% of business establishments in the Philippines, employing approximately 63% of the country's workforce. In the past years, MSMEs were responsible for 40% of the country's GDP. In the government's report as of June 2021, 10% of the MSMEs have been forced to shut down as compared to early this year in January, where only 4.6% fully ceased operations. Out of the 33,000 respondents in the survey conducted by the government, 46% of the MSMEs are partially in operation and 44% have full operations. Accommodation and food services are the second biggest sectors for the MSMEs. Severely affected was the tourism-related enterprises. Coordinating with supply value chains was the topmost reason why firms experienced operational slowdown or shutdown, followed by transportation, insufficient manpower, lack of access to financing, and absence of business continuity plans. The government recognizes the vital role of MSMEs in building back a better Philippine economy, and so all efforts are directed towards the swift recovery of affected businesses to spur job creation and livelihood opportunities. So the government implemented its Rebuild strategy, which stands for revitalizing businesses, investments, livelihoods, and domestic demand to ensure economic recovery. MSME relief measures also include provision of 0% interest loans through the CARES program or the COVID-19 assistance to restart enterprises. In addition to the government's effort to infuse capital in support of MSMEs, prioritization of MSMEs employees in the vaccination rollout was also implemented. For the food and beverage service industry, the government provided support through gradual reopening. The F&B industry submitted a proposal where they have fully vaccinated staff, they can consider additional percentage capacity. Safety seals from the government allow establishments to operate at an additional 10% capacity. A total of 7,000 safety seals have been issued to establishments found compliant with minimum health and safety protocols. Supporting businesses in the adoption of Industry 4.0 or the Fourth Industrial Revolution, which is the application of new digital and automated technologies to enhance production, processes, and service delivery, will further boost resilience and aid in the transition towards a more digitalized economy. Technology and innovation have the vast potential to transform agriculture and food systems and has started to take root in developed countries. Amid that scenario, the Philippines, more specifically the food and beverage industry, must not be left behind. The food industry must be abreast of worldwide developments in Industry 4.0, especially as the country moves towards the post-pandemic period. Industry 4.0 is a key part of the Philippines' growth agenda and should continue to be the focus for food and beverage manufacturing, which underpins the country's agri-food sector. The government launched the National Artificial Intelligence Roadmap that placed the country on the list of the first 50 countries in the world to adopt a national strategy and policy on AI. The Philippines is seeking to become an AI center for excellence in the region that is backed by our rich local talent pool and vibrant innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem. AI applications are seen in logistics, transportation, real estate, financial services, retail, agribusiness, urban planning, healthcare, and manufacturing. Our own Department of Agriculture is ramping up the digitalization of the agri-sector to push its planned transformation towards the fourth industrial revolution. Deliver E online delivery was launched as a platform for farm goods, believing that online is the new byword in safeguarding food security in the country. The farm goods delivery platform is blockchain powered and integrates related e-commerce and logistics application services, from consolidation point to a central warehousing facility, and then to last mile transport services to reach end clients. This online platform doubled the income of farmers from their harvests and reduced waste from 50% down to only 5%, generating more sales. Government initiatives to help those who were affected by the pandemic includes digital upskilling of existing and would-be entrepreneurs. Along with the promotion of financial technology, digitalization will empower MSMEs towards the fourth industrial revolution. In a survey conducted last September 2020, 73% of the MSMEs said that they need capacity building related to digitizing their business, such as financial, marketing, content management, basics of e-commerce, and starting an online business. So through the Reboot package for MSMEs, continuous conduct of webinars and training on e-commerce, e-payment, and digital marketing continue to encourage and assist MSMEs in embracing digitalization. So what do the F&B sector expects during reopening? First is the trade environment. There is a need to create a conducive trade environment to ensure food supplies remain open, transparent, and predictable. Transparent and predictable trade and investment policy regimes reduce uncertainty costs for businesses, while open and rules-based trade facilitates supply chain diversification choices by firms. This means a reliable, secure food network for everyone, both on a consumer and production level. The F&B industry should consider the online platform of the Department of Agriculture, since the cost-reducing power of digital technology came to the aid of the farmer producers, lightened the burden of the F&B industry, and impressively backed household food industries. It will be important for the government and private entities to continue building localized supply chains to guard against future disruptions while expanding farmers' access to credit through innovative and accessible technologies to facilitate modernization. Now, prior to the emergence of COVID-19, a just-in-time model had gained popularity with the consumer packaged goods manufacturers around the world. Such a model offers a cost-effective solution with minimum inventories that maximizes storage space and supply chain efficiency. Now, during the pandemic period, however, local and global supply chains were impacted by movement restrictions. So many companies were forced to diversify their sourcing partners and turned to local players in particular. This sparked discussions worldwide of the benefits of a just-in-case model, which emphasizes supply chain flexibility and resilience in the consumer packaged goods segments. Indeed, the simpler supply chains more efficient stock management, and lower storage requirements of the just-in-case model offered lower cost for both companies and consumers. It therefore seems likely that many consumer packaged goods players in the Philippines will continue to use this strategy, at least in part, after the pandemic. When global trade was put on hold due to the health pandemic, importers and exporters had to scramble in seeking to source their logistical needs. The scrambling led from one problem to another, and it has shaken the industries on how to thrive amid today's uncertainties. Delayed shipping arrivals and near record high freight costs. Shipping costs for exports have increased tenfold, with outbound shipments being delayed by a month to 3 months at worst. Food companies actually are already considering price hikes as global food supply chain disruptions increase import costs. The industry has been burdened with additional costs in importing raw materials and finished products amid delays in the food supply chain. So the logistics issue has been there, but since the pandemic, shipping line and destination charges increased by 4 times on top of surcharges implemented. Our local F&B sector is already pressing lawmakers and the government in general to address exorbitant shipping charges, such as asking the Philippine Ports Authority or the Maritime Industry Authority to regulate the fees. So generally speaking, the global shipping and or logistic issues we face today affect the cost effectiveness and efficiency of our supply chains. The rising freight costs ultimately put pressure on general consumer prices, as these are often just passed on to final consumers. Those who will resume operations will now face more competition, as the pandemic gave rise to new entrepreneurs, more specifically the micro entrepreneurs. It can be said that for every neighborhood, there should be at least one household engaged in a business. More than 916,000 enterprises registered and renewed their business names under the government last 2020, driven mostly by pandemic-weary entrepreneurs who wanted to start their own stores or sell products online. 91% of the total registrations were considered new, while the rest were renewals. So this is nearly 44% higher than the total registration in 2019 at 637,567. The government data suggested that many entrepreneurs turned to retail, either online or brick-and-mortar stores, to make ends meet last year as the pandemic dragged the country to its worst recession in decades. Another uniqueness of these micro-entrepreneurs is their positioning. Shoppers with limited mobility prefer proximity when visiting stores in their locality. 9 out of 10 Filipinos prefer to shop in nearby stores, offering an opportunity for retailers to consider expanding in or close to residential areas. And if the F&B sector would want to stay relevant, understanding the needs of the consumers will facilitate innovation. Innovation will play a vital role in the economic recovery process and building up of resilience. It is critical to deepen investment in innovation so as to strengthen the resilience and efficiency of a labor-intensive food value chain in the Philippines. Technological innovations should be carefully tested before widespread implementation so that proper risk-benefit analysis can be carried out. Pursuing an Industry 4 revolution can guarantee greater flexibility and increase productivity, allowing the industry to better meet consumers' demands and in turn drive industry growth. This could, for instance, translate into a wide variety of products and adjusted package sizes. The pandemic period, therefore, looks set to bring about long-term structural changes as consumer packaged goods players reconsider their offerings and adapt their business strategies to meet evolving consumer needs. These trends will not necessarily manifest in all shoppers or all Filipino households. To reach more consumers now, more than a year into the pandemic, brands needs to identify key targets, prioritize them based on how valuable they may be for the brand, and activate them through the right pack, price, and channel strategy. The government, citing international market intelligence company Mintel Trends report, has advised food and drink companies to focus on sustainability, and consumers will advocate for companies that pursue the triple bottom line: people, profit, and planet. They were also advised to take corporate social responsibility seriously. Lastly, food safety and quality should always be at the forefront of innovation. A food safety issue that we can see that is brewing may need to be looked at as more MSMEs and micro entrepreneurs venture into food. Risks has been identified with e-commerce related to ambiguity of regulations, ascertaining the authenticity of products sold online, and customs. Policymakers can facilitate internet sales by making sure that legislation covers this aspect and be vigilant on how these products are sold, and by also getting in touch with local trade organizations. Currently, the Codex Committee on Food Labeling has been working on guidelines on internet sales or e-commerce. As the world turns to new technologies, it is imperative to identify regulatory solutions to food sold online. While a number of initiatives exist to tackle online fraud, Codex is well placed to coordinate efforts towards defining and harmonizing standards in this area. Use of labeling, clear information, and international standards developed by the Codex Alimentarius Commission as a means to protect consumer health while facilitating international food trade. Other advancements made in terms of traceability systems, blockchain, and electronic documentation can contribute to consumer trust, opening the door to new markets. Food safety is the priority for e-commerce, and a risk-based approach that places controls on high-risk food products could help to ensure their overall safety. When consumers shop online, they need to have the same confidence they have when shopping in supermarkets, and they should have the same level of information and protection. Lastly, how are we going to end the year 2021? The Development Budget Coordination Committee revised its growth assumptions for fiscal year 2021. Initially, the target is 6 to 7% by the end of 2021. But now they revised it to 4 to 5% in light of the reimposition of stricter mobility restrictions in various areas of the country to effectively address the heightened risks brought about by the COVID-19 Delta variant. In the first half of 2021, careful balancing of COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 risks allowed the government to improve GDP growth to 11.8% in the second quarter of 2021. Without the present spike, the original target of 6 to 7% would have been achievable. However, with the global emergence of the Delta variant, the second half growth outlook was revised downwards to reflect the additional restrictions imposed by the government, which are necessary to curb its spread. More vaccinations, the government expects that this will significantly reduce the need for wide-scale quarantines, especially in key economic centers where the majority of Filipinos work. So in this regard, the DBCC retained its growth targets for 2022 at 7 to 9%, and for 2023 at 6 to 7%. So that's all I can share with you. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Dr. Lotus. It's quite impressive number. I really learned today that you guys in Philippines spending time on the internet 10 hours.
Yes, 11 hours. 11
yes,
hours.
I would say 11 hours. By 4
Yes.
minutes, you will reach 11 hours already.
Yes,
That's
yes.
half of the day.
Yes,
that
yes,
you
yes.
spend.
Yes.
So to our audience here, you can see that the way Filipinos spend time on internet is already direct to the way that the online or e-commerce would be the great opportunity.
Yes.
Also mentioned about the trend would be on the health, local base, and even government pushing on the sustainability. I am really interested in the story of health. So, I myself spend time in Philippines as well, seeing a lot of restaurants. What happened to those food service and restaurant now? How they adapt into the pandemic when ECQ, MCQ,
MECQ, yes, and all the and all the Q. Okay, so so the food service sectors were really were really affected, no, by these lockdowns. So what they did is most of them actually to remain relevant, no, that their menus to remain relevant with the consumers, they opted to serve their products either in frozen forms. So these are the frozen, ready-to-eat meals, and you can see them all over the supermarkets. So and also for the food service right now, although the dine-in is prohibited because we are in the modified community quarantine, takeout and deliveries is still open. So so the additional thing that they did is to process their products by freezing their highly priced menus or products, and then selling these to the consumers in frozen form.
So meaning to say, like most of the consumer, like what I heard from Indonesia, it's kind of very different from the Philippines market, because the Indonesians see that people are buying things for cooking at home more, but Philippines market seem to be like buying the ready to eat, ready meal to like preheated, and then that's the way. Cooking.
For cooking, well, it's a mixture, no. We saw a lot of home cooking, a lot of baking also, and then at the same time, at the other end of the spectrum, I guess the consumers would also want to try, or they really miss. Okay, basically they miss dining out. So some of them also, they will have these ready to eat frozen meals as part of their diet also.
So meaning to say, most of the food service, they adjust themselves and being like the food delivery, have to revolving their packaging, food pack in order to be able to deliver. That's happening in Philippines, right?
Yes.
The other impressed number, your micro, small, medium enterprise, 99.5%, which is bringing about 69% of the, I would say, of the revenue into the country.
That's 40%. 40%, yes.
So as you are the nutritionist, you are talking about the you are food scientist, nutritionist, you are talking about innovation, Dr. Lotus. How the innovation enlighten or the implementation to help the MSME happening in MSME level, like how the government help or even the association support into the MSME level?
So we have one sector in the government, the Department of Trade and Industry, who's been helping the MSMEs. They have webinars every week. Talking about, first is how to apply for license to operate. This is one of the things that most of the MSMEs or the micro entrepreneurs doesn't realize. No, you register your business, but it doesn't mean that you have the license to operate. The license to operate the food business is different. Okay, so yes, you register your business, but if you really want to operate and sell your products, you need to get a license to operate from the Food and Drug Administration. So the government is strictly, they are heavily campaigning for the MSMEs and asking them to join in the series of webinars. And the government agency is actually helping them how to get these license to operate. What are the steps in obtaining license to operate? So it starts with GMP, with the layout, and then the product specifications, and also there are also seminars dealing with the trends. For example, what are the trends right now? What are the ingredients that are readily available? The ideas, different ideas, so that this will help the MSMEs think of new products that will compete with the others that is already existing in the market.
Wow, so your government really active in approaching in the regional level?
Yes.
Have
yes.
the DTI, okay.
Yes.
So the other impression from your presentation, I would say like, wow, that is because I know that your population is kind of meat lover. You
yes.
pork meat,
yes,
but you present about the plant-based, and already the first launch plant-based belly roy. Wow.
Yes. Okay.
This is some question from our audience as well, and myself interesting also. As a food scientist, how you see the market of plant-based apart from the trend and people change their diet to plant-based, or they believe in the health. How you see the plant-based growing in Philippines in terms of economy of scale, the cost the consumer have to pay per kilo compared to meat production. How you see the future of plant-based?
Okay. Well, all the surveys that I have researched, they're all saying that there is really a market for the plant-based foods, and that the plant-based food in the Philippines will increase. Will increase. And so far, the Filipinos also are very much aware already of these plant-based food products, and but I haven't seen a big consumer survey in terms of their insights or what they think of these plant-based foods, because alternative proteins, for alternative proteins, plant-based is just one of them. Okay, there are other proteins that can be used aside from the plants. Okay, and so from the studies that I have been reading, or surveys that I have been reading, there is a slow acceptance because of problems with the taste, and the flavor, basically the sensory, not well, they keep on saying that the texture is like meat, etc., etc. But that is just only the texture. So what is important is also the flavor and the taste. So I think for ASEAN, since we have a lot of spices, a lot of ingredients and herbs and spices, we have that advantage of putting all of these spices and ingredients to improve on the taste and the flavor, the aroma of these plant-based products. So with the right skills, the right science, and the right formulation and the right use of ingredients, I think for the ASEAN countries, no, our plant-based products will be will increase in terms of acceptance, and that would be very good, no, for the population in ASEAN, since that would be something, it's an alternative, so it will be something healthy for the
Yes.
for us.
And I would say that ASEAN, we are the agriculture country.
Yes.
We have a lot of plants like soy, like corn that could do the plant-based product.
Yes.
It is interesting to see the food scientists and nutritionists innovate to be more really similar sensory as taste as the meat itself.
Yes. Yes.
So I would say that the innovation is there. So continue with the question on plant-based, Dr. Lotis. The question is about, do you see the plant-based demand or even the purchasing that happen in specific social class, or is already start to be in the wider group of the population?
I think it's still in a specific class right now. Okay, so so I guess slowly it will reach the other consumers. So that is one of the, I guess we really have to work on, we have to balance also the price also, no, for these plant-based products.
Yeah, I think it's about demand and supply. So see, and situation of pandemic is very fluid now. So
yes,
development is on.
Yeah.
The next question is about, you mentioned about many companies was closed down, some is still opening. So the question is about, from your perspective, from your opinion, how you see why those companies has to close down because of not enough financial, or not really can survive. It's too long with the COVID, or implement too long. What is your opinion, Doctor?
Well, as mentioned, no, in the survey, financial is one of them, and then at the same time is transportation, because these companies, the employees, no, have to go back to their homes, and if you want to reduce the risk for the COVID, there are times that the government impose companies not to provide transportation to employees. So this would be very, very hard, really, no, for the companies. And also there are some reduction, no, in terms of the number of employees. So because you really have to control the number of people working. So so basically those are the but what is really important is during this time we saw how food is really very essential at this point in time. So with all the sectors or industries, food will have to stay, okay, alongside with health and the medical and the health sector. So the food will have to stay, and so the government will really have not to provide all the assistance because everyone needs food on the table. So we need that, no, for us to be healthy and to be strong during this pandemic.
Yes, and definitely there is an opportunity for the exporter from other countries if to look in the Philippines market as well, because we can see the surplus, the deficit happen in Philippines, that in Philippines still import some of the products. So come to the last question, Dr. Lotis. It's like, I would like to get your idea and your vision on how we all together, the food manufacturers and the food related sector, that could help Philippines to be like maintaining food security and making it sustainable food and beverage industry?
Okay, that's very okay. I think during this time is we really need to be one, okay, have one goal, and that is really to rebuild the economy. And how do we rebuild the economy? So for in the case of the Philippines, I guess in all other countries also, like I heard the talk of the Indonesia, is one is really to support local products, okay. This is our by supporting these the local products, this will encourage, this will give us basically it will help us with our plans, with our business plans, that we there's no need for us to rely always on importation, but there are suppliers out there that we need to look for. And then so I guess, and also these suppliers also will need to inform us also that they are there, okay. So I guess the openness of suppliers and the traders with the consumers should be present. And then also is I guess sharing of information, best practices, to help all those affected, especially with all those businesses, sharing of experiences, best practices, and to make it to make the market alive, I guess, and so that we will have a lot of products available for the consumers. The consumers will basically benefit from this. So we should help one another and be open to one another, and and really hope and pray that everything will be over soon, and that we will all recover from this pandemic.
So I really looking forward to go to Metro Manila, because
yes,
by end of this month you will reach herd immunity about 50% already. Congratulations. So ladies and gentlemen, it's come to the end. I would like to thank you, Dr. Lotis, so much. Salamat po for
thank you, Rose. ขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบคุณค่ะ